Good afternoon. It's about 3 o'clock on November the 14th, 2020. Vernon, BC. Got a pretty nice day today. Snowed yesterday. Most of it's gone today. It's about 40 some above now. Not too much going on around here. It's Saturday, the Sabbath day today. I've been sort of listening to a few things, you know, that goes along with that. But we're still in a situation, like it makes me wonder. I notice a lot of people are involved in thinking about the election in the United States, and I think that's worldwide. I mean, I've been very interested in that for many years now, and it's actually amazing to me why I am. Like I know other people. My sister, for instance, is rabidly against Donald Trump and all that sort of stuff. And I told her, I said, well, we'll see if he's going to win. I said, obviously, the idea that was going to make it so he can't win, even if he did win. But well, my problem with that is that she has no idea about politics and anything else except that she's watching the media. And I told her that she's being brainwashed by the media. She gets very upset about that. She considers that it's her ideas. And it's not her ideas at all. It shows the power of media, propaganda. you know, uh, Not that I don't think Jesus was referring to that when he said the last thing he said before when he left this planet or left this earth was, beware that you're not deceived. That many will come saying all kinds of things. That's not, I don't think he was referring to politics, but in a way, politics and religion are not far apart. The the thing that really is kind of sad is the idea that we have a system of what's called democracy, where people are supposed to be able to vote for who they want to rule over them, and that up to now has been a pretty common thing over the years, many years. But politics has gotten so I don't know what the word would be. It's gotten so bad, and there's no honor in it at all of any kind. Strictly a power situation for power, and the when you see what they'll do to try to get power, it really makes you think that you know the whole society is degenerating into a lower and lower deal all the time. I mean, there's all kinds of things to think about. For instance, in my case, at 86 years, when I was growing up, there was no politics. There was no or narrative coming from media like that. None at all. The thing is, all that has changed. So the moral deal of how I grew up, which wasn't, I mean, I didn't think we were being very moral or anything. We weren't that moral, were I? I mean, we went to church, all right. That's what about it. But that's because church was more of a headquarters. In a way, a lot of things went on in the community at the church. Uh, people were, but I was baptized there. I was confirmed there. I was married there. So was everybody else. And that went on every so often. That would be either a birth or wedding or a funeral or church service or something going on. The, uh, the whole thing was a different, totally different level. The idea of mass media hadn't come in, and I kind of think that that is the more the media gets what would you call developed, only in a developing in a way developing in a way that is not really good. I mean, I'm using media right now that I could never have used before to get on YouTube and spiel my thoughts, I guess. But it's also bad because there's most likely just as many people thinking to spill their own thoughts, and they're most likely not mine. And it's given a platform for actually given a bigger platform for, I think, evil than it has for good. And it's going to, well, a good example is I just said my sister is brainwashed and she thinks she's not. There's just a prime example of one person, not millions. And there is millions and millions who are totally convinced that the things that they believe now about politics and people and who's good, who's bad, whatever, is their considered opinion when it's totally fed, absolutely fed by media. And it's fed in the form of propaganda where media used to be news. It is not news anymore. No, it's a political force, and it's being used by politics all more and more all the time. But the the thing is, it's that the thing that's predicted all along has been that people will eventually, what they call, fall away from uh, religion. And basically, I'm talking about Christian religion. Now, a lot of people don't like to admit the fact that Jesus said that he's the only way, there is no other way to God except through him, and that means that there's no other way if you believe him. If you don't believe him, well, then that's different. But the thing is, that is being, uh, well, fought or, you know, pushed down or abandoned or fought against like tooth and nail by people who are basically atheistic, who are secular, who are evolutionists, who are what would be the other? I don't know, but people who are secular, I think, is the biggest problem because they everything that comes up they justify it as uh, man's improvement. Well, it's not. All these things are coming up are making it more and more difficult, but they're making it they're actually fulfilling the plan that God has set, how the world is going to go, and they're fulfilling it left and right. The thing is, it's not a pretty picture in my view. The future is not. There's not a good future. People can say all the things they want about all this stuff, how the gay lifestyle is so great, it should be supported at all costs. Politicians, families get split on it, and It's made so that you should not have an opinion counter to that. If you do, you're wrong. If your opinion, if your opinion is in line with what God has said in God's word and God's way, you are out of step. You are out of line, and we got to get rid of that. So, and that's also predicted. It's also said. That's for sure. So, you know, when Jesus told these people, he said, you forsake the commandments of God for the traditions of men. Well, that's exactly what it is. And what gets me is how people's minds can get so easily twisted or whatever into the idea that there is no that this life is all there is, and you have to get whatever you can out of it, and don't, you know, this is what we're fighting for, and this is what we want, and then we just die. You know, there's nothing after that. We just die. When in the actual fact, you know, if you believe the Bible, and which I do, and I believe that every single word in the Bible is true, not just part of it, every single word. If people who really study the Bible, I haven't been studying, I don't know the Bible that well, but I know it well enough to know that it is a special book that has power in it, that's for sure, that was put together by, I forget how many authors it was, 45 or something, over a period of 1,500 years and all this sort of stuff. But to another thing, I was just listening to a bunch of preachers on TV here that were having a panel discussion on things. And I noticed this one guy, I mean, I've watched him a little bit. He's a very famous preacher in Los Angeles. But, well, there's a couple things that I just don't understand why they, and yet he has a huge congregation, huge big church and all this sort of stuff. I think they were celebrating his 50th anniversary in that church. But he believes in the rapture, that people are just going to get raptured out here if you're a Christian and if you believe in Jesus. And there's not going to be any tribulation or trouble for you. Then he gets talking about things like his father and grandfather and all this sort of stuff. And he gets to the point where he says, well, you know, my father, he preached his last sermon from heaven, you know, he was in heaven, because he wrote it out, but he wasn't able to give it. And that just makes me cringe, because I notice that in a lot of churches and a lot of people. For instance, I try to keep the Sabbath day. I mean, I didn't for 70 years, 75 years maybe. But the Ten Commandments says you're supposed to keep the Sabbath day. They twist that around. The Catholic Church changes it from Saturday to Sunday and says they did it because they have the power to do it. There's no way that God has ever changed it. And then they go on about this, my father's in heaven or my mother's in heaven. Or, you know, to me, it makes me cringe, because I can't believe that. I have to believe what Jesus Christ said. And he said, no one has gone to heaven except he who came from heaven. That's plain and simple. He said it right there. Now, God did take a couple of one or two people, but that was a sort of a one-off deal. I mean, they took them alive. And But, to say that when you die or you go to heaven and blah, 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 I believe that your spirit goes back to where it came from. And that where it came from was from God. And the spirit is most likely exactly what happens at the moment of conception. You're given a spirit. God gives you a spirit because He's the one involved in that. So, people, and as far as heaven goes, it's very plain that Jesus has said, and if you read Revelation, and if you believe that, I think it's chapter or verse 20 or something like that, about the guy who describes the city of God, the size of it, 1,500 miles square and 1,500 miles high, and it's going to be coming down from wherever, heaven or whatever, but it's coming down from God actually to earth after the earth has been completely destroyed and burnt to a crisp because whole earth has to be purified. And God says there's going to be a new earth and a new heavens. And God is coming to this planet. Heaven will be here. It's not anywhere else. It's not going anywhere. But, that's what Jesus said. And I can't believe what tradition and men say that they dream up. That is just technically wrong. They take it that where it says that when you die, your spirit returns. So I think it was St. Paul that said his spirit will return to God again. And then they amplified that to say, well, everybody goes to heaven. Their spirit goes to heaven. The body is finished. Never have that again. The thing about it is, it's really a cut and dried black and white situation. It's between life and death and destruction. It's either life with Jesus Christ, the Messiah, who's going to judge the whole world and everybody in it and everybody who's ever lived. Or if you do things where God lets you get to a point where you have no conscience, so you have no remorse for anything you do or believe, and you go along with all the things that God hates, and you don't ask for forgiveness because you don't have a conscience anymore, and you condemn yourself. God does not condemn you, but you condemn yourself. You will be condemned, you will condemn yourself. So, that's the danger. People who, I honestly believe people who support people who do things that God hates and they support it, I think God most likely, and I believe that He would say that they are in the same category as the one who did it. The only thing that I came to conclusion about a long time ago, and it wasn't from the Bible or anything, it was just sort of the idea that the idea of resurrection. That Christ said that everyone will be resurrected at a certain time. So all the people who are convinced to kill their children, kill their babies, kill them in the womb, tear them apart, suck them out, and the woman is guilty of that, but so is the man. He's just as guilty. And the thing is, they're going to have the guilt of that murder, but the child that is murdered and destroyed, in my view, I'm quite sure that God says He will resurrect every single one. They're not lost. He has said that. He doesn't lose people. So, but that's a phenomenon that has come on the world in the last 25 years, maybe, pushed by women mostly and men. There are men who push it too. There are men who push their wives or girlfriends or whatever to have an abortion. They don't want children. That's the way to avoid. So to me, they're doubly guilty because they avoid the responsibility of their own actions. Uh, it's tough. This world's a tough place. The oh, I hope that people will uh, learn or find out about actually the plan that God has for them. God has said that there will be. I think He said that there will be a great, awakening at some certain time in the future, before He returns. And but when you look at everything around you and you realize that God has said that there's nothing going to be here. Everything you see is temporary. It's absolutely temporary. I don't care how big or how much concrete it is, it's temporary. Even the hills and the mountains and whatever else are temporary. They're going to be changed, and the heavens and the earth are going to be renewed. A new heaven and a new earth, he says. That's something. You just stop and think about that. A new heaven and a new earth created by the creator of the universe, who creates everything. And then you start wondering how big God must be. I mean, He must be in a way. He must be. He's not material. He's spiritual. He's a spirit, but He's a spirit who has all power to Himself, and He has all power. And I often wonder how this got to be in the first place. How long was it that God contemplated everything before He created matter and the universe and stars and whatever? I guess He maybe let these things develop on their own, because the stars and whatever formed, and they created actual material things, and that took a long time for even the size of the planet Earth. I mean, the planet Earth's not that big. It's a lot bigger than this. But for it to actually gather from itself from space by gravity, kept pulling in, creating minerals, rock, whatever, solid. How did it develop a big nickel iron core in the center, and all this heat from pressure, and I guess it's the pressure that creates the heat, because we're living on a hot rock. And it's really something that, of all the universe and everything that's in the universe, billions and billions of stars and planets. Well, not billions of planets, but billions of stars. I don't know how many planets. There's most likely a lot. I don't know what that is. That God would pick this blue little planet hanging in the sky, in the air, to be His headquarters. That's quite something. And then He decides to create a big family to spend eternity with them. Now that's quite a thing. I mean, who could dream up something like that except God? I don't know. I mean, well, the thing is, he creates human beings out of the dust of the ground, actually, when he first started, and created a plan. And then he created a womb in a woman to multiply. And the woman carries the womb. And I hate to say this, but I think in heaven to come, whatever it is, there will be no females. I don't think there will be any women. But their spirit will be there. If they die or whatever else, their spirit will go and they will end up being in heaven, but not as a woman. I guess from what I understand, the residents of heaven are going to have characteristics that are different from each other, but they're going to be like a young male, maybe 30 years old male. And the reason I believe that is because there's no battle of sexes or anything in heaven, because there's no reproduction, there's no marriage, there's no whatever. There's no more people being created. And there's many strange things that people, being a person, have to think about. Not that you can think of, I mean, you can think about it. The thing is, I can only believe, absolutely only believe what God says, or what Jesus says. You know, Jesus said it quite a bit when he was on this planet. And he said quite a bit before he was here, because he gave stuff to all kinds of old people in the Old Testament and whatever. He came as a different person, and he was Melchizedek, and he he came, several times to the planet. The Aztecs said that he came to South America, told them about things. I like the idea that Melchizedek was king of Salem. That's quite a thing. That's Jerusalem. He was king of Salem, and then it says in there that he had no father or mother, so therefore he was either an angel or whatever, or a god, or doesn't really say. But all through the history of Christ's dealings and stuff, Jerusalem was his main theme of his life and creation and people. And when Melchizedek was king of Salem, that's when Abraham was around, and Abraham went and saved his nephew Lot, who got captured by a bunch of people, I guess, whatever. And Abraham had a big household of about 200-300 people, and he had warriors and soldiers in it, whatever. He went and he captured Lot back out and took all the spoils, and I think killed a whole bunch of them and whatever. And on his way back, he stopped in Jerusalem. And when he met Melchizedek, he gave him tithes, he said, of all his war booty. But the thing that I like to think about is the name Jerusalem. Now, Melchizedek was king of Salem, Salem is a Hebrew or Jewish word, I guess, for peace. I don't know if it's Hebrew or Jewish or what. But anyway, and so he was the king of peace, Salem. I remember that, king of peace. Jeru, in the same language, means area, town or city or area. Jerusalem. That's where Jerusalem comes from. He's the king of Jerusalem. And I thought that was pretty neat because, I certainly didn't grow up knowing that. And it makes sense when you know what it is. I mean, Jesus has been like promoted as the king of peace. But he's much more than that. He's the king of war. He's the king of judgment. He's the king of all kinds of things. So, what a world. A lot of people just get up and say, well, I got to go here, I got to go to work today. Tonight I'm going to do this, and then tomorrow I'm going to do this, and that, and this, and that. They forget where they're at. They forget where they're living, where they're alive. And they definitely forget why they're here. It took me a long time to figure that out. And I mean, I don't know if I've ever really figured it out. I knew when I was younger, and I mean quite young, maybe before I was 20 years old, I realized that there was something. I had no idea anything about religion or anything else. But it seemed to me that I used to say to myself that we're here like on a 2-week holiday on this planet. And during that period of time, we have to make a decision about things while we're here. And I think that's about as close as it is. I don't think that's ever changed. And I believe that the decision to make is either life or death. You either believe what God has provided, what Jesus came and provided, and he says you have to believe that I exist and you have to believe that God sent me and that I died in your place. I paid the penalty for sin so you could be righteous. Righteous means right with God. Nobody is, human beings can't hardly get by for an hour without thinking they're doing something wrong. And I think you have to continually ask for forgiveness and whatever, which God says he will do. So the main thing is to not get hard-hearted and secular about things, because then you get to a point where you lose remorse, lose I can't say. But anyway, if you lose that, you get hardened, and you won't believe you're doing anything wrong, and there's no reason for you to ask for forgiveness because you've done nothing wrong anyway. And that's the end of it. That's the end of the person. And then you go on and you just bury yourself deeper and deeper. And God allows that. If that's what you do, he allows you to do that. That's the scary part. That's the sad part. I am in a situation where I really don't know how to take the idea that my wife, after 46 years, orchestrated against me, actually, with my children. And she's now in a care home, suffering from 2 heart attacks, stroke, and now she has a tumor, 4.5 centimeter tumor in her lungs. And I think to myself, why would one person have that much happen to them? And she has suffered and cried and railed against people and mad. And I can't, she doesn't want to see me or talk to me at all. I did go up to the hospital and see her when she had 1 heart attack. And I wanted to talk to her and tell her that I actually forgive her for what she had done, because I realized I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like what she did to me, and I knew I couldn't forgive her just by wanting to give it. I had to do it by a choice and actually just do it, whether I wanted to or not. I had to physically do it and ask God to okay that, because for a human being to forgive is practically impossible, because we're not capable of forgetting. God can forgive and forget. We can't. It's very hard. There are sometimes people can forgive, right? But it's just, how are you going to get it away out of your memory? So the only thing to do is consider that it's something that it's an act that you actually just do, and God will count that as being credible, and then ask God to do it. But I just can't understand. I mean, to me, it seems like she's just about like under a curse. I've never, experienced this before. And whether she is or not, I don't know. But I've asked God to remove her from that curse if that is the case. But I don't know if he will or not. But I don't think there's anything wrong to ask God for just about anything. Actually, you can, if it's His will, you can ask if it's His will to do it. Then He most likely will be done. If it's not His will, it most likely won't be done. But the world is shaping up to become getting a more and more dangerous place for the human race. And I think it's going to accelerate. That things are going to accelerate one of these days. It's going to accelerate with secular, powerful people like in China, who have a big army and a big force, and they're rich, and they are secular as can be, and how that's going to work. I mean, how is some guy who could be Antichrist come from maybe the Middle East or Europe or something, is what they think, and and take over the whole world? I mean, how powerful would he have to be to take over and convince like billions of people in China, India, who don't, there's no religion, no Christian religion. Well, there is Christian religion, but it's not the primary one in either country. They're there though. And, it says that they, 200 million man army will come from the east towards Jerusalem. Only get 200 million out of China or India or somewhere. So that's the thing is to say that people are going to be raptured out of here, and I think that's That is total fallacy. I think that is something that Satan has put into the minds of many people to, well, basically feel like they will have nothing to do with these troubles. It's called Jacob's trouble. Anyway, it's 40 minutes. I can't rattle on anymore. Man, oh man, who would want to listen to me for 40 minutes? Oh, God bless and goodbye.